I built this coffee table almost 2 years ago. It has a solid walnut border wrapped all the way around the top and the bottom shelf. And by most rules of wood movement, this table shouldn't have survived its first winter. Wood moves across the grain with the seasons, and oak moves more than most species. Wrap a border around a tabletop like this, and that movement can tear this wood joint apart within a year or two. I built this table to test a theory that changes where the movement goes. I then sat on this footage for 17 months. I didn't want to guess whether the theory worked. I wanted to know. And after 17 months, no gaps, no cracks, no separation anywhere on that border. So let me walk you through how I built this. I'll start with the bottom shelf since I can show you the whole process live. The tabletop's built the same way. I just don't have the complete footage from 17 months ago, so I'll share what I have once you've seen the process here first. Here I'm joining oak boards which will make up the bottom shelf. I've got a lot of rip cuts to make here, so I'm switching to an 1/8 inch kerf blade to cut down on waste. Rip your boards to the desired thickness for the shelf. I cut the bottom shelf to 1 inch, the tabletop was cut to 1.25 inches. After I finish ripping these boards, I'll explain my theory of how I plan to push back on wood movement. I'm going to use these oak strips just to help out visually. If I glued these boards with the face side up, cut a circle out of it and wrapped it in walnut, the wood movement would push out against the border, eventually causing it to fail. My theory is, by simply turning the strips on their edge and gluing them face to face, the wood movement is now vertical instead of horizontal, relieving the stress on the outside walnut edge. Turning the strips on their edge also results in a tighter looking wood grain. After turning your strips on their edge, you'll need to joint both faces of the strips to ensure a good glue up. I recommend mirroring your cuts to offset any variance you may have with your joiner. Your joiner could be off by 1/4 of a degree. Multiply that across 20 strips and your boards will glue up bowed. You're going to glue these up in sections so you can run them through your planer, so it's critical that the glued sections are flat coming out of the clamps. I use cawls to keep the strips aligned during glue up. Notice how flat this board is coming out of the clamps. Make sure you joint the panels before gluing them together. You shouldn't have gaps anywhere on these panels. Now that the panel's glued up and flat, it's time to cut out the circle with a circle jig. The main reason I wanted to put the walnut edge on this round table is I don't like seeing end grain on furniture. I'll save that look for cutting boards. Now I'm going to show the process of making and bending the walnut strips around the shelf. This walnut board will go through the same process as the oak boards. This is a very time-consuming process based on the multiple glue-ups required. The bottom shelf took 10 glue-ups, the top took 12. I'm just going to cut the strips a little wider so there's overlap on the shelf, which will be sanded flush later. I'm ripping 1/8 inch strips here from the edge of the walnut. I'm going to layer these around the outside of the shelf. I'm tapering the edges of these strips, which will spread the joint out over a 3 to 4 inch area, making it less visible. I'm only going to show gluing up and routing a few of these strips. It's the same process for all 5 layers. No comments about my truck tie down I'm using as a strap clamp. It's what I had on hand and it worked fine. After you overlap the opposing tapered strip, you need to true up the circle again using your circle jig. You need to do this for each layer. using my sanding disc here to grind down the walnut strips flush with the shelf. Rough sanding the shelf here, and notice that I left the pivot point on for the circle jig. We'll need that for the epoxy inlay, which is next. I'm using an 1/8" spiral bit here to route out this channel. Take 2 to 3 passes going down about 1/4 inch. legs are 6/4 oak and I use simple overlap joints. I added 1/2-inch dowel rods for extra strength, and I cut the angle of the legs at 7 degrees. I'm adding a decorative detail to the front of each leg. Here I'm recessing the rubber feet to bring the height down a little since they were sitting a bit high. Now cut the top angles on the legs. You need to make sure your table is level, then clamp along level at the proper height to mark the correct angles to cut. I cut these legs at 14.5 inches. The table and mounting brackets add another 1.75 inches. If you want to achieve a rich black color on hardwoods like oak, buy a bottle of black Indian ink on Amazon. Indian ink works great on hardwoods, and it really highlights the grain on oak. Apply 2 coats of ink, allowing a full 24 hours before the second coat. Use fine steel wool to smooth out the wood after each coat dries. I then apply 3 coats of Armor Seal satin, allowing to dry 24 hours between coats. Lightly sand with 220 sandpaper after the first 2 coats.